The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to say two big thank yous before we begin today's podcast. Now, the first thank you is to everyone who is tuning in and listening to this episode from around the world, especially because today is episode 543, believe it or not, of the Simply Inspired podcast. So, to everyone who has stuck by me this far, thank you very, very much. I'm also going to say that if you're tuning in for the first time, I will include in this introduction the second big thank you, which is to today's guest. Now, hopefully, when I'm saying Ajita Dasa, hopefully I'm saying it the right way, but if I am murdering that name, I do apologize because I spend more time practicing names than I do practicing or preparing questions. So, we'll talk about that in just a moment. But today's guest and today's story is all about the spiritual path, guys. It's as simple as that. Our intention is to help all of you by providing this unique and valuable story, which is an insight into the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, otherwise known as the Hare Krishna movement. And today's guest is a member of that organization, but has been through a remarkable transformation and spiritual awakening to get there, and has completely changed his life and his entire persona, shall we say, through God's grace, through Krishna's grace. So today we will be sharing that story with all of you in the hopes that wherever you are at on the spiritual path, there will be something you can gain and something you can learn whilst also hearing this inspiring story. And Ajita, my friend, first of all, am I saying it right? Am I saying it the right way?
Yeah, that's good. Ajita. Some say Ajita, some say Ajit. Because in Sanskrit, you can take the last A and leave it. So some will say Ajita Dasa, some will say Ajit Das. It depends on the region in India. But you said it right. That's good. And in my videos, I said Alex. That's my birth name. People sometimes can relate to that more, but Ajita is my spiritual name. So.
Absolutely. Okay. Ajita, otherwise known as Alex. Okay, or vice versa, depending on how we look at that. Well, I also want to thank you sincerely, and I want to put this on the record because you are in the process of moving, not to get into anything personal there, but just the fact that you've made time for this today, despite being sort of in motion with that. I'm very grateful. So thank you. And Hare Krishna to you and to all of our audience. I'm just very, very grateful for your time, Alex or Ajita. Thank you.
Thank you, Liam. Hare Krishna. And thank you for your efforts to try to spread positivity and help people awaken to a higher consciousness is very, very important work. So, yeah.
Well, it's my pleasure. My pleasure. I'm doing my best. I'm learning as I go, as I mentioned to you. So very open about that. But I do my best to help others and spread higher consciousness. In this case, Krishna consciousness, of course. And we will talk about that. But before we get into that, I mean, now you are a very spiritual person. You're sat there in serenity, even whilst in the process of moving. So this is obviously all part of your development, but your life wasn't always like this. Now, as I mentioned to you in the beginning, the first video I saw about you, completely by chance, was about a background in DJing and about as a background in, let's just say, living a very different lifestyle to today. And really, what I would like to do is just start there, if that's okay. Just to start with a little bit about where you're from and a little bit about how your life was going prior to an interest in spirituality in this context. May we start there, please, Ajita, my friend? Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the video covers things very briefly, the kind of broad strokes, but I grew up in Ottawa, in Ontario, Canada. Pretty like normal French Canadian household. But from a young age, I felt like something was wrong with society, and I had pretty rough breakup as like a teenager with a girl that had some pretty big mental health and addiction issues, and um, and then another breakup. So yeah, I had some pretty hard things happen to me, and even had to call the ambulance on an ex who tried to commit suicide, and like so many like traumatic things kind of like happened. And then I got into the rave scene in Ottawa, especially bass music. I was really into bass music. I have like both arms. I have like tattoos of like bass music artists and stuff. And because I found something there that I didn't see in mainstream society. There was kind of a sense of community, sense of peace and love, I suppose. But eventually I realized that really that was fueled by drugs, especially MDMA, Molly is a big part of the scene. And I used to take that a lot. And it caused me problems, and it definitely caused me problems. Um, you know, I could have died in some instances, for sure. I could have died. And also, I wasn't really being such a good person. I was kind of, yeah, sleeping with pretty much any female friend that I had. That was kind of the scene. That's just how people were living. It was kind of this idea of freedom or whatever, like rejection of mainstream society. But that caused me troubles that caused, I caused people harm. Like I wasn't really um, upholding any kind of righteous values or anything like that. And then eventually I hit rock bottom and basically I got rejected from the scene. I didn't like, ri one time I tried to buy a ticket for an event and it got refunded because I wasn't like welcomed anymore. So that was like a big wake up call for me. And then COVID also helped a lot because you couldn't party anymore. That wasn't a thing. So then I got into more meditation, more like reading spiritual books. And then that's kind of like how it started by this kind of like rock bottom. Then it kind of like fueled a desire for something more. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, quite a change, quite a change. As I said before, the contrast then to now is, very extreme, but the transformation, it takes a lot of courage, a lot of commitment, a lot of discipline, and I respect that very, very much. So, okay. Oh, and also, by the way, just so I don't forget, I respect the vulnerability very much of you sharing your story as well, because, that's a very brave thing to do. There's no two ways about it. So, anyway, just wanted to mention that to you. Okay, so meditation and spirituality. So it started with reading during that time. And how were you drawn specifically to this Hare Krishna movement and the works of your founder, who, as I was showing you earlier, I've got a picture of him over there, by the way. I forgot to show you that. I just showed you the book. But anyway, that's another story. And everything that followed in terms of chanting and everything. I imagine it was a gradual process, and I imagine maybe there were a few different types of meditation. I mean, for example, personally, I looked into Buddhism first, and I certainly found some answers there. And I picked up a book by Radhanath Swami, actually, who called The Journey Home first, as I thought it was a Buddhist book, and then obviously discovered your movement inadvertently from that. But I was just curious as to what that kind of process was like for you and how you stumbled upon this specifically, please.
Yeah, it was similar to you, Liam. Started off with Buddhism quite a few years ago as like a young adult starting university. In the rave scene, I had one friend who suggested Alan Watts to me. I'm not sure if you're
Very,
familiar.
very familiar. Yes, I had a
Yes.
similar experience. But starting off very early with him in my late teens. Somebody tried to suggest. I think God was trying to help me a while back, but I wasn't listening until a while later. But that's another story for another day. Okay, Alan Watts.
Yeah. From what after speaking to quite a few Westerners that came to Krishna consciousness, usually it starts with some kind of Buddhism because I grew up in like a Christian family, but more like kind of superficial, just for like the values and the tradition and whatnot. So I ended up kind of atheist or like agnostic when I got to university. I kind of rejected Christianity, but Buddhism I was open to because there wasn't really a conception of God. It's just kind of these teachings that were like all interconnected and were like all one in a sense. So that resonated with me. And also I had some psychedelic experiences like mushrooms and LSD that actually like I felt that in a sense. I felt that sense of like connection and I started to see beyond just like the material world a little bit. And so, yeah, so there was this, I call it like there's kind of two waves of awakening. So the first one was like a Buddhist kind of wave that happened in that time, like early 20s with the Alan Watts books, also Eckhart Tolle as well. Power of Now and A New Earth. A New Earth especially resonated with me. Alan Watts, it was the wisdom of insecurity that really like had a huge impact on me. And so, but that lasted on for a few years, but it didn't lead to actually any spiritual practice or anything really. It was just kind of like this general, I like these ideas that like I was kind of in this idea like I don't exist, like we're all one, this kind of idea. But it was only, but I was vegetarian a long time, very long time since the beginning of university. It's probably like 8 years now, 9 years. And so I went to a vegetarian restaurant in Ottawa with a friend when I was in university because she said, "Oh, it's vegetarian and it's really cheap. They give like $5 meals." I was like, "Okay, that sounds good." But little did I know that that was a Hare Krishna temple. I didn't. That was a Govinda's restaurant. I had no idea. I just came in. Okay, you take off your shoes. There's pictures of a blue guy on the wall. I didn't know what was going on. But I remember I had a pleasant experience. But it's only after years later that I came back there by my own desire. I had basically after the whole kind of tragic thing that happened that I don't like share publicly, but that was due to my own karmic reaction and whatnot. I took shelter of a friend who was a yogi. That was the biggest thing. And I showed a picture of him in my video on Instagram. He used practices Kriya yoga. So from the line of like Paramahamsa Yogananda, like that same kind of lineage there. And he does like at least like 2 hours a day of this practice. He's been initiated many years. And also that means he's following a sattvic lifestyle, the mode of goodness. So he's like, vegetarian or vegan, doesn't take alcohol, doesn't take intoxication, these kinds of things. So I became friends with him because we both got accepted into the same university. We were going to go and do teachers college and be like teachers basically. And we were both going to go to a school far away, like 4 hours away. We didn't know anybody else there. So that and the fact that we both worked at the same vegetarian restaurant kind of like connected us when we became friends. And I kind of like lost all my other friends and I was really at a low. So I was very inspired by him and I decided to try to like be like him more, like be like a more, I guess, pure living. And I started practicing Kriya Yoga as well. And that had a really positive effect on me. I was doing every morning, every night, about like half an hour. And it was really powerful. And I felt like a good effect on me. And I quit or cut down a lot in terms of intoxication. I wasn't going out to parties and raves anymore. So that kind of started my shift there was more with the Kriya Yoga. That was my first like actual sadhana that I was doing every day. And also he recommended this book. I also showed that in the video. Kriya Yoga, the Four Spiritual Masters, something like that. I read that book and that I called my second awakening. And that was the first awakening where I felt God, like I felt God in my heart or something. And I was really low, but I was really trying to change. And I was really alone. Like I really had like nobody basically. But and I can't really explain it, but I felt God, like I felt like super soul inside of my heart with these practices and the meditation and also like some calling out. And and then after that, then I got really into this stuff I looked and I found on YouTube, I found Sadhguru, and then I got really into Sadhguru, and I did his inner engineering course, and that was also transformative for me. And then I looked up Hindu temple in Ottawa, and me and my friend Chris, my yogi friend, then we went to the Hare Krishna temple in Ottawa, and then I recognized like, hey, I've been here like years ago. This is the vegetarian restaurant I went when I was in university. And then I met my first devotee there, Mandala Ram Prabhu. He's just the nicest, most sweet, humble person I've ever met. And he was serving us the best food I ever, and everything about the place was just the best. And I was just like, I don't know what's going on here, but this is super nice. And it was right beside the university too. And I didn't know that there was this little oasis there. So then we started coming every Friday mostly for the food and just to talk, talk spirituality and stuff. But I hadn't been to a program. He didn't give me a book or anything. It just started off with the prasadam, like the spiritual food, and with the association of devotees. That's kind of how it was for a while. And then I went to Shivananda Ashram to do my yoga teacher training course. So that's kind of unrelated. It's not Hare Krishna, but it's still like yoga. It's still on the spiritual path, just a little bit different. But and the devotees had told me about this Rath Yatra festival in Montreal. So that's like a big chariot festival where hundreds or 1,000 people come and they chant and dance in the streets. So I was like, okay, I should go to that. So when the time came, even though I was at Shivananda Ashram, I went to the Hare Krishna festival in Montreal and I had the time of my life because I it was combining spirituality and like the partying, the dancing that I that I used to love when I was in the rave scene. So I was just like, whoa, you can like dance the kirtan, it's like spiritual and everybody's sober, but everybody's like having an ecstatic time. I was like, okay, this is what I want. And my friend Mandala was there, and he gave me a bunch of books. That's when I finally got Prabhupada's books, and I started reading Science of Self-Realization right away, and that had a huge impact on me. And yeah, so I mean, I could keep going with the story, but you were wondering, okay, how did I got to the Hare Krishna movement? So that's pretty much the answer, yeah.
It makes sense, but it's an incredible story, my friend. It's absolutely incredible, and the series of steps, absolutely amazing. I mean, God was looking out for you all along, I think, and it took a series of steps, but you got there, and that's my next question, really. I mean, it's one thing to sort of dip your toe into these movements and feel a bit better and try some practices and even to teach what you said earlier about the training course and the yoga training you were doing separately. Okay, people do things like that, but then to say, okay, I'm actually going to dedicate my life to this movement, and to make that decision is a big leap. And to become like a monk and everything that you are now, this is, or you can clarify for us how you define that. But this is a very important part of the process, and I would just like to hear more about that sort of next phase from, okay, you've been recovering from the material world, from Maya, from whatever you want to call it, and breaking the chains of all of these things. But then to step into this and say, okay, I'm literally going to dedicate my life to this kind of service, it's a big step. So, what was the initial spark of that decision, or how did that decision come to be, even sort of after the point that you were explaining just now, please?
Yeah, so basically, it wasn't my intention. It's not like there was a point where I was just in normal material life and then I was thinking, I should be a monk. Let me go. Like, it's not how it happened. Like you said, it was all God's arrangement. It was all Krishna's arrangement that he set me up one little step after another. I kind of see it like breadcrumbs, you're just like, okay, go get that breadcrumbs and get the bread like that. So basically, how it really, my spiritual life really kicked off was when my friend and I, we both started teachers college together and we both just really didn't like it. It just didn't resonate. It was during COVID, so it was like online and I was just like, this is not what I want to do. And simultaneously, the last few months, I had gotten so much into like yoga, spirituality. I was reading books like Bhagavad Gita and meditating and hearing from gurus like Sadhguru and whatnot. And I was just like, why am I wasting my life trying to become some kind of like high school teacher and teaching some crap to these kids that is not gonna actually help them at all, you know, and what actually matters in life. So then both him and I, we dropped out. And then I was like, okay, well, I was doing that full time, so I have to do something else. So what am I gonna do instead? And then I was thinking, well, I know I want to teach and I love yoga. Let me teach yoga. So then I just looked up, okay, what's some of the best yoga teacher training courses, programs that we have in Canada. Just so happens that one of the best, it happened to not be too far from me, which is in like the mountains in Quebec. It's Shivananda. And so I was like, okay, let me do that. And it's a residential program. Like you go and you live in this ashram in the woods. It's beautiful. It's very vast. There's a lot of buildings and there's a big Krishna temple and several halls for yoga. Anyways, it's super nice place. And so I was like, okay, let me go do that. But the thing is, in terms of the physical yoga, I wasn't very advanced at all. Like I had been just like a few classes and a little bit of yoga at home. But what I was mostly inspired by was the spiritual side or the philosophical side. But I knew that it came hand in hand with the physical side, and I knew if I could teach the physical, that's like a gateway because it's so popular around the world now. It's like if I can teach the physical yoga, then that could be like a gateway for me to also spread knowledge on the spiritual side of yoga, which is a lot less commonly known around the world. So then I was like, okay, let me go a month early before the teacher training course so that I can have a month to get used to the physical practice and also the lifestyle there, which had quite a strict discipline. Every morning there's a huge bell in the middle of ashram that gets rung at 5:30 a.m. and everybody has to be up and then everybody has to be in the temple by 6 for the meditation, the morning satsang with the meditation and the chanting and the class. And then you have a 2 hour hatha yoga class every day. And no intoxication, not even coffee, no alcohol, only sattvic food, only vegetarian, no onion and garlic, things like that. And yeah, so I got used to that life there and I loved it there. I fell in love with that place and I made friends and it's super nice. So I did a month preparation and then I did a month of the yoga teacher training course. And then after that, I was like, okay, I'm a certified yoga instructor. So how do I start teaching yoga? What's the next step? Well, whenever you have experience, you know that you need, whenever you have education, you know you need experience. So I was like, what's the best way to get experience? What if I just stay here and start teaching yoga at the ashram? So that way I can get experience. And then when I go out, then I'm more likely to be able to maybe get hired or have clients or something like that. So that was just the idea was, okay, I like it here. Let me just stay and teach yoga. So that's what I did. I stayed there 6 months. And then eventually I realized I'm like, I'm a monk. Like this is what it is. That's not the word they use there. They use karma yogi, which is basically means like you're doing karma yoga, which is like selfless service. So you're doing service, but you're not doing it for money or any kind of reward. You just get the basic, like you just get a place to live, so 2 meals a day, and that's what they pro and then in exchange you do some service. So I was giving like 3 classes of yoga classes a week, something like that, 2, 3 yoga classes. And then I just got used to the monk life, and I was like, this is really nice. This is very like simple. Everybody there, nobody is in a relationship, so there's no like relationship drama that is common in society. And then, but eventually I felt like I needed the next step because the philosophy didn't totally satisfy me. This idea that we're all one, we're all Brahman, and that's it, and the goal of life is just to become God. And like I was just like, I don't know, I don't know about this. So um, yeah, so when I went to that festival in Montreal, and then I met a monk, his name Brihat Mridanga Prabhu. He's from the States, but at the time he had started a Bhakti Academy at the Toronto Hare Krishna temple. And so he invited me for that. And I was looking for the next step, and I was really inspired by all that. And also, I had a calling towards Bhakti Yoga because at the Shivananda Ashram, they practice the four yogas: Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. But I felt really called to go more into Bhakti Yoga. And actually, something happened that made me go in that direction, which is I got too much into pranayama when I was there. I was doing way too much advanced pranayama. I had my own little cabin in the woods, and I would just do like an hour of just like hardcore pranayama on my own every morning. Pranayama is like breathing exercises. And actually, I kind of messed up my nervous system a little bit because I was just like overly, I had too much energy. I was like overly stimulated. I couldn't like blink or sleep or do anything anymore. And one of the swamis there, one of the monks, she suggested to go towards bhakti yoga. She told me like chant with your beads, like mantra really slow. And she told me read Srimad Bhagavatam, which is like the main scripture in bhakti. So I did that. And by doing this, I realized, okay, no, I need to go more towards bhakti. And that actually there is a supreme person called Krishna or Vishnu, the different names, different expansions. And so, yeah, so I started to think, okay, these Hare Krishnas, I think they have a higher truth. I think they have a higher understanding. And also, I really like their kirtan. I really like the dancing, the chanting. I like their food. I like them. I like everything about them. So let me go to Toronto and see what this Bhakti Academy is all about. And then I went there for their Rath Yatra, their festival the next weekend, and I had a great time. And they took such good care of me. They gave me a bed. They gave me food. They brought me to the festival. Like they took care of me like nobody ever else did. And they didn't know me at all. They had no idea who I was. And so after that weekend, I was like, okay, that's it. I'm sold. So I just went back to Shivananda for 2 weeks, just to kind of give my 2 weeks, do my service, because I had a lot of service there. I was even helping teach the yoga teacher training course. I was working reception. I was running the boutique. Like, anyways, I had different services. But after 2 weeks, I got all my stuff, which is not a lot of stuff. And then I went to the Toronto temple. And that's how my life as a brahmachari or as a monk in the Hare Krishna movement began. So,
Wow, that is incredible. I'm just honestly, I'm more and more in awe of the dedication and the discipline, but also, as I've already said, the way that God, the way that Krishna was working to help you all along. I mean, it's extraordinary. Okay, so in the Hare Krishna temple itself, adapting into that life, for people who are curious, for people who are maybe struggling with the details of their own path, or, in other words, for people who are maybe in a tradition like you were with the yoga, but with the Kriya yoga and everything, but they're thinking, okay, not everything fits here. What were the differences in the Hare Krishna temple and some of the things you were doing differently for people who are not familiar with the movement versus what you were doing before? Because as you said, you were sort of already a monk for a while, but when you went into the Hare Krishna temple, it's a different kind of thing and it's deeper again. So basically, just the lifestyle, the routine, some of the things you were doing in there, adapting to the community. Anything you'd like to share about that adaptation process would be awesome. Thank you.
yeah, it was quite similar, and that's why it wasn't that difficult for me to adapt to the life in the Hare Krishna temple. Both have a set schedule every day that starts quite early. At Shivananda, we got up at 5:30. At the Hare Krishna temple, we got up at 5. So it was really like there's a bunch of things that were similar, but at the Hare Krishna temple was just kind of like a step up, like just a little bit going a bit deeper, a little bit more challenging, but also more purifying or elevating. So yeah, at both of them you have a morning program, which means the first thing you start in your day is with sadhana, with spiritual practice. So at the Shivananda, we would do silent meditation. At Hare Krishna temple, we would do chanting, mantra meditation. I mean, they both recommended mantra meditation, but at Shivananda, we would do it in our head, in our mind. And at the Hare Krishna temple, we would do it out loud. But and also over there they give options of mantras from the Vedas. You can chant Om Namah Shivaya, you can chant Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha, you can like there's different mantras that they give you. But in the Hare Krishna temple, everybody's just chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So that's the mantra that we focus on there because in the scriptures it says iti shodakshakam nam nam kale kalevam tam tam evaiti kuntiya sarata bhava bhavita, that in the Upanishad it says that this Hare Krishna mantra is recommended for this age of Kali Yuga, meaning this age of quarrel and hypocrisy that we see around the world. It's recommended as the most effective means to counteract these. So that's why we chant this mantra. So, but other than that, similar, they in Shivananda, they're not focusing that much on scripture, on Vedic scripture. Like, okay, Swami Shivananda has a translation of the Bhagavad Gita that if you do the yoga teacher training course, you study that a little bit, but their classes that they give every morning, every night is just based on either Swami Shivananda or Swami Vishnudevananda's teachings. And whereas in the Hare Krishna temple is very scripture based study. The main scriptures being Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Chaitanya Charitamrita. So it's very scholarly, it's very educational. What really impressed me about the Hare Krishna devotees is that they speak authoritatively as representatives of the scriptures and the lineage of spiritual masters that have been passing down the scriptures from generation to generation. Because at the Shivananda ashram, yes, I was hearing about Bhagavad Gita, but it was only when I met a Hare Krishna devotee that I heard them literally reciting the Sanskrit verses word for word as they are in the original scriptures. And I thought that was really impressive because, you know, that's the biggest issue people have nowadays is how do we trust the interpretations that people have of the original scriptures that were written thousands of years ago? So when you meet these devotees and you see that they are reciting the scriptures exactly as they are, is very interesting for me. And also the importance of a spiritual lineage, of a lineage of spiritual teachers that are going all the way up to Lord Krishna himself, who spoke the Bhagavad Gita 5,000 years ago. So for me, like I have a university degree, so these are some things that I learned about having proper references. You know what I mean? Having, because people nowadays, we just speak whatever. I think this, I believe that, oh, I heard this guy say this. What is your reference? What is your praman? You know, there's a term in Sanskrit called praman, which means evidence. And so we should always have our references and they should come from authority. And when something has been passed down for thousands and thousands of years and is still being practiced and is still being applied nowadays, you know that it has value, has a lot of value. So yeah, for me, it was similar. It's just like the next step, just deeper spiritually. The people there felt a lot more spiritual. Like at Shivananda, it's like, okay, some interest in spirituality, but mainly we're here to have a peaceful life. We're here to like be happy. We're here to like, you know, purify and things like that. But we're not here to transcend the material world. We're not here to elevate our consciousness. We're not here for self-realization. And we're not here for pure love of God. That was the biggest difference was at Shivananda because it's this idea that we're all one, we're all God. So what is the question of bhakti? How can you have love and devotion if God is some kind of energy, some kind of light, and we're all God? It's like, what do you mean? How can you have loving devotion for that? That doesn't make any sense. And that's why I didn't see the people there having bhakti. I didn't see bhakti there, even though they said they were practicing bhakti yoga. So that was the biggest difference was with the Hare Krishna devotees is they had actual bhaktis because they actually understood that God is a person. God is a person and he has a relationship with us and we're a part of him. And so we need to reawaken that relationship. That relationship is there, but it's like dormant, or we're ignoring it, or it's covered by the illusion of Maya. And so, yeah, for me, it just was a lot deeper and a lot more real, and everything made sense. Everything is very logical. When I came to the Hare Krishna temple, like there wasn't just like, oh, we do this ritual, we do this and that because that's just what we do. It's like, no, everything was very logical and very real and very emotional and close to the heart. So that really drew me in there. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Now, as we move into the final phase of this, my friend, I would like to talk with you as well about the impact that you're currently having now, because obviously, in the world that we live in, people are very caught up in people are very um, quarrel and hypocrisy, really. I mean, you summed it up earlier. There's a lot of that going on now. But you are having a positive impact through the work that you're doing, and hence I found you on social media to begin with. And that is very important because people go on about the internet and people say, well, it can spread negativity, it can spread opinions. But then the extension of what you were just saying just now about the evidence, the logic, the lineage, and so forth, is that you also and other people in the temple, other people in this movement now have unprecedented access to reach around the world and share these kinds of truths. So, really, my question here in its simplest form is your impact that you're having through the work that you're doing now. Um, how do you kind of measure that in the sense that, for example, I've reached out to you from, thousands of miles away in Europe, for example. It's got to be something that's part of God's plan for you to take this because, as you mentioned earlier, you wanted to be a teacher, and now you are teaching, but in a totally different way. So, how do you measure the impact that you're having and the impact that Krishna is having through you with the lives that you touch? Being a member of this movement is the simplest way I can put it. Does that make sense where I'm going with this one?
Yeah, I mean, one of the main teachings in the Bhagavad Gita is Krishna is teaching us to be detached from the results. So just doing things because they're the right thing to do, or doing it even higher than that is doing it for Krishna. So just doing your best to serve Krishna. And how do you serve Krishna? You serve his representative, meaning the pure spiritual masters, such as Srila Prabhupada in this case, and all his other representatives. So I just try to focus on serving the mission and to the best of my abilities. And I'm happy when I see positive results coming from that, but I'm trying not to be attached to it or to do it for the result. Like I want to spread Krishna consciousness because I want a lot of followers and I want people to give me appreciation or recognition and stuff because this is very binding and it's not at all helpful spiritual life. The basic principle of advancement in Krishna consciousness is humility. We're always trying to cultivate humility. And so, but we can be happy when we see that people are coming closer to Krishna, of course. So for me, how I measure success, I for me a big thing is chanting. Chanting Hare Krishna is very powerful because we can talk all day long philosophy and it's very helpful, but there's something really magical about chanting this mantra and it's beyond what you can get just from like sitting and hearing from somebody because the names of Krishna and Krishna himself are non-different. So when you chant, it's like you're inviting Krishna there inside of your heart and it's very purifying. It's kind of like his phone number. That's how you call him. You chant these names and that's how you call him and he comes to you. And so, yeah, that really enlivens me when I hear people that didn't used to chant that are now chanting, or that were chanting but are chanting more, or they're getting a lot of benefit from it, or they're feeling like they're getting more focused on it. So that's a big thing. And that's what Prabhupada focused a lot on is the chanting. Chant Hare Krishna and be happy. Chant and be happy. And that was his thing. So chanting,
Absolutely.
if I hear people are chanting more, they're like that it's having a positive impact. That's a big win for me and for the movement, and also um, reading Prabhupada's books, hearing Prabhupada's classes, or just classes by his followers, and people are applying it into their lives. That's the most enlivening thing for me. I'm just like basically I'm just trying to bring people to chanting Hare Krishna and to Prabhupada and his books and to kirtan also. Kirtan. So japa chanting on your own, chanting in a group, kirtan with music, and reading Prabhupada's books and hearing classes. Whenever anybody's doing these things and they're getting benefits and they're finding purification and they're losing these bad tendencies of like lust, anger, greed, and are developing more love for God, more love for everyone else, when I hear these things, I feel very happy. So that's me.
That's a beautiful description. That is an absolutely beautiful description. Um, Absolutely remarkable. Okay, the last couple of things then, and we'll wrap this up very shortly. But the last couple of things, people will want to know, especially people who are still lost and finding their way back from the material world, the comparison of what you used to do with like the MDMA, the Molly, and the casual sex and drinking and all of that stuff to your state of mind and the bliss that you feel through the chanting and these practices and these things. And I know that there's going to be sort of no comparison, but to hear that in your own words of like a then versus now, like the sort of superficial pleasure that you got from those things to the pleasure and joy and bliss that you have now, which really exudes from you, by the way. How would you compare the conscious experience of the two because you've lived both worlds so deeply, if that makes sense?
Yeah, like you said, there's no comparison. There's really no comparison. It's like what's what's uh what's like a cheap fast food pizza place close to where you live that you can get?
Oh, we've probably got most of the same stuff you got in the States, but like Pizza Hut is probably the biggest
Yeah.
they call
So like
pizza.
compare like having a Pizza Hut pizza that they just made on the spot, they just give to you, to go into like a remote town in Italy and having like an Italian family cook like a homemade pizza that they just like they worked all day on the dough like that, you know?
Yeah,
It's a very crude comparison because they're both just physical experiences, but just to give you an idea. Because the thing is, in yoga, they teach you that we have different bodies. We don't just have a material body. We have a material body, we have a subtle body, and we have a spiritual body. So, pleasures of the senses, such as sex, such as drugs, intoxication, such as food, all of these things that everybody is living for, that they think that's the whole point of life, are on the material level. That's uh, the least important layer. It's the most disconnected from us. And then higher than that would be pleasure on the subtle body, which include the mind, the intelligence, these kinds of like pleasures are even higher. But higher than that is the spiritual body. And that's who we truly are. We are a spirit soul. We are spiritual. We're not material. So anything material that has to do with the body or even the mind or the intelligence is not going to truly satisfy us. So the kind of experiences that I've had, I cannot describe into words. But, there's been a lot of like full body shivers and hair standing on end, and there's been crying and there's been dancing like you wouldn't believe, and there's been like I mean, we don't like to talk about these things as spiritualists because like it can inspire like pride, like spiritual pride, like, oh, look at me, I'm like so advanced and I'm experiencing these high levels of spiritual ecstasy. We don't try to talk about that. We try to cultivate humility, but also I want people to know what you can get out of this. That actually what you're looking for is not outside of you, it's inside of you. What you're looking for is inside of you. And by the chanting, by the praying, by the books, by all of these things, you can get in touch with that bliss that is inside of you. It's called Ananda. We are Sat Chit Ananda. The soul is Sat, is eternal, Chit, full of consciousness, and Ananda, fully blissful. We are fully blissful. It's just we're covered by so much crap, so much dust from the material energy. So, by practicing Krishna consciousness, by chanting Hare Krishna, we can start to peel away the layers of crap and reawaken that dormant love, that dormant ecstasy that is inside of us. And it's not just word, it's not belief. There's no believing stuff here. It's totally scientific. The you are the lab. The experiment is waiting for you. You have to do the experiment for you to actually know what I'm talking about. But I'm telling you, it works. That's why millions of people around the world are chanting from so many different cultures. It's not like a Hindu Indian thing. Everybody's doing it. Any major city, there's a temple and people are chanting. It just takes a little bit of humility, a little bit of open-mindedness to just try it. Just try it. That's my message. Hare Krishna.
Very Krishna to you as well. And it's a beautiful message. I mean, the way you distill this down, it's spiritual science. Yes, absolutely. What a wonderful way to describe it. Well, my friend, this has been a pleasure to talk with you today, as soon as we're talking about the different bodies and everything. I mean, personally, I can experience sitting with you this wonderful feeling of, Krishna and of this whole energy moving through you. And that's why we were chatting at the beginning. And it's like, oh, yeah, okay, we need to do an interview here. I could just talk with this guy and, forget we're even doing the broadcast. And that's testament to your practice as well. The final thing I would like to say, just very, very briefly before we go as well, is can you give a mention, please, to how people can follow you? Because the only other thing I know that books are out there. I mean, there's so many. Also, you mentioned great books even earlier, like Chant and Be Happy, and I've read that as well, and some other things. And there's a lot of resources, but it's just that if people are resonating with your journey personally, from the rave scene to Hare Krishna, if people are resonating with that kind of process, they might want to follow more of your content specifically. So can you just give a very brief mention as to how people can follow you, and then I think we will this up pretty much.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's important that people connect to a real person that is practicing. Actually, the path, the first step is called Shraddha, which is faith. That's how bhakti begins, is some faith. So usually that faith is in a person, is in a devotee, somebody practicing. So if by Krishna's grace, I am that person for you, or you have some interest, some inspiration, then you can follow me on Instagram. That's the page I'm most active on. It's called Ajita Dasa 108. That's the handle. Should be able to find it, I hope. If not, Liam can also send that as
I
well
will.
to them.
I
Yeah.
Yeah, if anyone has any trouble, I know that we're doing this for the movement, but I also know that because you've shared your story today, some people will feel that trust with you. So it's just important to mention that. And you're very accessible and approachable,
Yeah,
very
and
to
you
respond.
can feel free to send me a message. I try to respond, especially if somebody is really like inquiring and wanting some guidance. Also, I would say stay tuned because my partner and I were planning to start giving out courses as well. We're gonna start to do some courses, so where we dive into particular topics of interest or certain books that people want to learn more about, like the Bhagavad Gita, for example, and also live and also coaching sessions. So we're basically my partner and I, Ananga Manjari, also I would say follow her as well. She has a lot more followers than I do. And we're gonna start a platform soon, like a website where we offer different services of coaching, of classes, of so many different kinds of things like that, so that whenever somebody doesn't have maybe a temple nearby or doesn't have a community that they're really connected to, that they can tune in and they can receive the spiritual nourishment and education that they need, and connection also. We want to make friends. Is very important to have friends, because bhakti is teamwork. Bhakti, compared to other yoga, like other yoga is quite personal. It's like myself, my sadhana, my relationship with God. But with bhakti, it's teamwork. You gotta do it as a team. It's not a solo sport. You need some teammates, and you need to, because that's how you can be strong together. If you take one stick, you can easily go break it. But you take a bunch of sticks, and it's very hard to break. So it's like that. We gotta stick together, and that way we have a chance to overcome Maya and go back home, back to Godhead. So yeah. So please don't hesitate. Reach out to me, and stay tuned for the upcoming courses that are coming soon.
Absolutely. Well, that is very exciting news that the world so desperately needs right now. And I've also got to say as well, just in closing, it's beautiful that you do this with your wife and your partner as well, because not only have you found this beautiful connection with God, but you found true love as well. And that's nice because I think people think the spiritual path is very solitary, don't they? I mean, people think of like a monk as a very solitary. But the fact you guys are working together, if you don't mind me saying as well, that's a very wonderful thing. So, I just wanted to give that a mention. Okay, my friend. Well, I've taken enough of your time. You are moving after all. You have a lot going on. Thank you so much for everything that you shared today. And as I said at the beginning, it sounds cliche, but if we touch even one person's life with this, then it's been worth doing. And I know it will be even more than that, but the principle still stands. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna to you. Have a wonderful rest of your day because you have all of it to go. Mine is finishing, but yours is still going ahead. Every day is a blessing. And just thank you once again, honestly, from my heart, for taking the time to do this form of selfless service, which I really hope will help people.
Thank you very much, Liam. If there's ever anything else I can do for you, let me know.
I will, absolutely.
Have a great
Please
day.
keep me updated. Keep me updated on the courses. Anything I can do to support those, I would be happy to do so as well as you develop everything that you just shared there. But yes, have a lovely day, Hare Krishna, and all the best, my friend.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the Simply Inspired YouTube channel, and there'll be more videos coming soon.